For my birthday, my son gave his father-in-law a brand new Mercedes and handed me a coffee mug from a gas station. He smirked, saying, "Hope you like practical gifts, Dad." I smiled, but inside, my heart was burning with rage. Little did he know, I was sitting on a $50 million fortune, and I was about to teach him a lesson he would never forget. Instead of the inheritance he expected, he got exactly what he deserved. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. Dad, here's your birthday gift. Hope it brings you as much joy as you brought me. Demetrius's voice cut through the birthday dinner conversation as he slid a small, poorly wrapped package across my dining table with that familiar condescending smirk. I caught the lightweight box, my weathered fingers peeling away what appeared to be dollar store wrapping paper. Inside was a ceramic coffee mug with "World's OKS Dad" printed in already fading letters. Very thoughtful, son, I managed, forcing a smile that felt like swallowing glass. The mug felt hollow in my hands, much like I felt sitting in my own dining room. "Oh, but wait," Demetrius interrupted, his voice rising with theatrical excitement. "I haven't given Maximilian his gift yet." He reached behind his chair and produced an elegant leather portfolio, the kind that cost more than my monthly utilities. The gold embossing alone looked expensive, gleaming under my simple dining room chandelier. Maximilian Rothschild straightened in his chair, his perfectly tailored suit catching the evening light streaming through my windows. My son's father-in-law had the kind of confident posture that came from never doubting his place in the world, never worrying about mortgage payments or grocery budgets. "These," Demetrius announced, lifting luxury car keys from the leather portfolio, "are the keys to your new 2024 Mercedes E-Class. Fully loaded, executive package. $78,000. His chest swelled with pride as he delivered this information. "You've taught me what it means to think like a successful man, Maximilian. You deserve only the finest." I sat there, still holding my $5 gas station mug, watching this display of worship unfold in the dining room where I'd eaten countless solitary dinners after working 14-hour days to put Demetrius through private school. The same room where I'd helped him with calculus homework until midnight, where I'd consoled him through his first heartbreak, where I'd celebrated every one of his achievements as if they were my own. Maximilian rose with the fluid grace of someone who'd never known financial struggle and embraced my son with the kind of warm, encompassing hug that spoke of deep emotional connection. The kind of hug I hadn't received from Demetrius in over 5 years. "This is extraordinary, my boy. Absolutely extraordinary." Maximilian's voice carried genuine warmth, the kind of paternal approval that should have been mine to give. The word "boy" hung in the air like incense, sacred and suffocating. "Maximilian has been more than a father-in-law to me," Demetrius announced to our gathered family, his voice carrying reverence usually reserved for war heroes. "He's been a mentor, a guide, a true father figure who taught me what it means to pursue real success, not just ordinary work." The silence that followed was the kind that accompanies terminal diagnoses. My sister Evangeline shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her fork suspended halfway to her mouth. My brother-in-law Constantine suddenly found his plate fascinating. Even my grandson Phoenix, Demetrius's 15-year-old son, looked up from his phone with confusion. Ordinary work. The phrase echoed in my skull like a death sentence. I had been a single father since Demetrius turned 12, when my wife Valentina lost her battle with ovarian cancer. I worked double shifts at my architectural firm, shifts that started before dawn and often didn't end until after sunset. I came home exhausted, but I still sat at this very table helping with homework, reviewing school projects, attending every parent-teacher conference, every debate tournament where he competed. I sacrificed everything to ensure Demetrius had opportunities one never had. I paid for private tutors, SAT prep courses, college tuition. I worked overtime for months to afford his study abroad program because I refused to let financial limitations define his potential. But apparently, none of that qualified as real success in his evolved worldview. "Well," I said quietly, setting the coffee mug down with deliberate care, "I suppose we all received exactly what we deserve tonight." The comment passed largely unnoticed as Maximilian regaled the table with stories about his latest business acquisition, his voice carrying the smooth confidence of someone accustomed to being the most important person in any room. Demetrius hung on every word like a disciple receiving scripture from his prophet. After dinner, as family members filtered out with promises to call soon, I found myself alone in my kitchen, staring at that coffee mug while washing dishes. The ceramic felt even cheaper now, like something that might shatter if I gripped it too tightly. My phone buzzed with a text from Demetrius. "Thanks for dinner, Dad." Hope the mug wasn't too much of a shock. Maximilian says you need to develop a sense of humor about these things. See you around. See you around. Not love you, not thanks for everything, not even happy birthday. Just the casual dismissal you'd give an acquaintance. That night, I lay in my empty house, the same house where I'd raised him alone, where I'd nursed him through childhood illnesses, where I'd celebrated every milestone, and felt something die inside me. Not anger exactly, but a cold clarity that comes when you finally see a situation for what it truly is. The next morning arrived gray and overcast, matching my mood as I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, reviewing financial statements. This had been my routine for 37 years, first as a young father counting every penny, then as a successful architect protecting what I'd built. My architectural firm, Castellanos Design Group, had grown from a one-man operation to a multi-million-dollar enterprise specializing in commercial developments. What started as me drafting blueprints at this same kitchen table had evolved into projects worth tens of millions. I employed 43 people and maintained contracts with major developers across 3 states. But as I scrolled through my investment portfolio, something caught my attention that made my coffee grow cold. An investment I'd made 3 years ago showed numbers that seemed impossible. Stock options. Specifically, shares in a technology company called Quantum Leap Innovations that I'd bought on my financial advisor's recommendation. I'd invested $2.8 million, money from a particularly lucrative project, in what seemed like a long-shot bet on quantum computing technology. The current value made me blink hard, certain I was hallucinating. I refreshed the page. The numbers remained unchanged. $52 million. $52 million. My modest investment in quantum computing had multiplied nearly 20-fold after the company's breakthrough in quantum processors revolutionized the tech industry. While I was focused on designing buildings and raising an ungrateful son, my throwaway investment had transformed into a fortune that dwarfed anything Maximilian had accumulated through his sophisticated strategies. I called my financial advisor immediately, my hands trembling as I dialed Theodore's number. "Vincent, good morning. I was hoping you'd call. Have you seen your Quantum Leap holdings? Theodore, please tell me these numbers are accurate." "They're accurate, my friend. Congratulations. You're looking at just over $52 million. The quantum computing revolution has been extraordinary for early investors." I hung up and stared at my laptop screen at numbers that represented more wealth than 3 generations of my family had ever dreamed possible. More than enough to make Maximilian's car gift look like pocket change. More than enough to change everything. But the irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was worth over $50 million, and my son had given me a $5 coffee mug while showering his father-in-law with luxury vehicles. My phone rang, interrupting my contemplation. "Demetrius. Dad, I hope you're not still dwelling on last night. The mug was meant to be lighthearted. You always said you appreciated practical gifts." "Practical?" I repeated flatly. "Right? And honestly, I thought you'd find a humor in it." Maximilian certainly did when I told him about my gift strategy. He said it showed I understood different people operate at different levels. Different levels. The casual cruelty of that statement hit me like a physical blow. Not only had he given me a joke gift, but he'd shared that joke with his father-in-law, turning my humiliation into their entertainment. Did he now? Look, I know you might feel excluded, but Maximilian has taught me so much about wealth creation, about investment philosophy, about thinking beyond small-scale projects. Maybe someday you could learn from him, too. Learn from him. As if my 37 years of building a business from nothing, of creating jobs and supporting families, of transforming creative vision into tangible success, was somehow inferior to Maximilian's inherited wealth and silver spoon connections. "I'll consider that advice," I said quietly. "Perfect. Oh, and Dad, we're having a celebration dinner this weekend at Maximilian's estate. You should come. Maybe dress appropriately. His associates will be there, and presentation matters in his circles." The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief. An invitation to dinner at his father-in-law's house, with a dress code suggestion that implied my usual attire wasn't suitable for his circles. I looked around my kitchen at the modest but comfortable space where I'd made countless meals for my son, where I'd packed his school lunches every morning for 6 years, where I'd celebrated his graduation with his favorite pizza because it was what he requested. None of that mattered now, apparently. 3 days later, I drove to Maximilian's estate to observe this celebration dinner, where my son felt I needed to dress appropriately for people who were apparently more important than the man who'd raised him. The Rothschild property sprawled across 20 manicured acres in the most exclusive part of town, protected by electronic gates and landscaping that required a full-time crew. The circular driveway looked like a luxury car exhibition, filled with vehicles that collectively represented more money than most people's retirement funds. I parked my reliable Honda Accord, a car I'd driven for 6 years because it was dependable and economical, between a Bentley and a Porsche, feeling like an intruder at my own son's gathering. The dining room was something from a design magazine, complete with crystal chandeliers, imported marble floors, and a table that could seat 20. Demetrius was holding court near the windows, gesticulating enthusiastically as he explained some business concept to a group of well-dressed strangers who looked like they'd stepped out of a corporate boardroom. "Vincent," Maximilian's voice boomed across the room as he spotted me. "Delighted you could join us. Come, let me introduce you to some important people." The introductions were a masterclass in subtle condescension. "This is Vincent, Demetrius's father. He runs a small architectural firm. As if employing 43 people and generating millions in annual revenue was somehow quaint. And this," Maximilian continued, gesturing toward a distinguished man in an expensive suit, "is Harrison Blackwell. He owns Blackwell Development Corporation." Harrison's handshake was firm but perfunctory, the kind of greeting reserved for people you meet once and forget immediately. "Architecture, we use many firms for our projects. Always appreciate good craftsmanship from reliable local operators." Local operators. The phrase followed me through every conversation that evening. I listened to these men discuss their portfolios, their acquisitions, their children's elite educations, and their wives' charity boards. They spoke about money with casual familiarity, people who'd never worried about mortgage payments or college tuition deadlines. Demetrius navigated through it all like he'd been born to this world, dropping references to investment strategies Maximilian had taught him, business opportunities he was exploring, connections he was building. He introduced his wife Serafina to everyone as Maximilian's daughter, never mentioning that she was also my daughter-in-law. I stood near the bar, nursing a whiskey and watching my son transform into someone I didn't recognize, when Harrison approached me again. "Your boy speaks very highly of Max's mentorship," he said, nodding toward where Demetrius and Maximilian were deep in conversation with two other executives. "Max is quite the talent for developing young potential. So I've observed. It's refreshing to see a young man willing to learn from successful mentors, you know? Too many kids today think they know everything." Harrison sipped his wine thoughtfully. "Max tells me Demetrius is eager to expand beyond the family business, broaden his horizons." Intelligent approach. Expand beyond the family business. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. "Is that what Maximilian shared with you?" "Oh, absolutely. We've discussed it extensively. Demetrius has remarkable potential, but he needs the right platform. Max is considering bringing him into one of his ventures, giving him access to serious capital instead of—" Harrison gestured vaguely. "Whatever scale you operate at." I excused myself and walked to the estate's garden, where manicured pathways led through elaborate landscaping. The sounds of laughter and conversation drifted through the evening air, but I felt completely disconnected from the celebration happening inside. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Evangeline, who'd heard about tonight's gathering. "Hope you're having fun with the rich folks. Don't let them make you feel small." Too late for that warning. The drive home passed in a blur of empty streets and harsh streetlights. When I pulled into my driveway, the house felt smaller than usual, marked by the kind of solitude that comes from being forgotten by the person you love most. I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop, staring at those investment numbers again. $52 million. More than enough to buy and sell everyone at tonight's dinner. More than enough to show them what serious capital actually looked like. But what was the point of having wealth if the only person whose respect you craved couldn't see past a coffee mug to the man who'd sacrificed everything for his success? That weekend, I made a decision that would change everything. I called Theodore and instructed him to liquidate $10 million of my holdings. Then I contacted several exclusive dealerships and arranged for private consultations. Monday morning, I drove to Demetrius's office, the investment firm where he worked as a junior partner, a position I'd helped him secure through professional connections I'd built over decades. He looked surprised to see me, not entirely pleased. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "I have client meetings all afternoon. This won't take long." I handed him a folder containing documents I'd prepared over the weekend. "I wanted to give you something special." He opened the folder with reluctant curiosity. Inside were title documents for a 2024 McLaren 720S, pearl white, fully customized, worth $400,000. His face cycled through confusion, disbelief, suspicion, then calculating excitement I'd never seen before. "Dad, this is incredible. But how could you possibly afford?" "I had some investments that performed exceptionally well," I said simply. "I thought you deserved something that matched your standards." For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of the boy I'd raised, the one who used to run to me after school with perfect test scores. But it passed quickly, replaced by greedy anticipation. "This is phenomenal. Wait until Maximilian sees this. He's going to be so impressed with your evolution." He was already reaching for his phone, presumably to share the news. "This changes the entire dynamic, Dad. This proves you're finally ready to operate at our level." "There's more," I said, producing a second folder. This one contained investment portfolio statements showing holdings worth approximately $25 million, all documented, all real, all representing less than half my actual wealth. Demetrius's hands trembled as he reviewed the documents. "Dad, this is... Jesus Christ. You're wealthy. Like, seriously wealthy. Why didn't you ever reveal this?" I wanted to observe what kind of man you'd become without knowing. He looked up with transformed eyes that suddenly saw me as someone worth respecting. "We need to celebrate this immediately. We need to inform everyone. Maximilian will want to discuss investment partnerships with you right away." "I'm certain he will." That evening, my phone never stopped ringing. Demetrius had clearly broadcast news of his father's mysterious fortune, and suddenly everyone wanted to reconnect. Serafina called to invite me to an exclusive charity gala. Maximilian himself left multiple voicemails expressing his enthusiasm for discussing mutually beneficial opportunities. But the call that mattered most came at 9 p.m. "Dad, I owe you a profound apology." Demetrius's voice carried humility I hadn't heard since his childhood. "I had no idea about your success, your investments, your sophistication. I thought I made terrible assumptions." "What kind of assumptions?" "I thought you were just a small-time architect who never achieved major success. I thought you were limited in vision, thinking small-scale. I didn't realize you were building significant wealth." Building significant wealth. As if raising him alone, creating a successful firm, and maintaining my integrity through decades of hard work was somehow insufficient until validated by portfolio statements. "So my value as a father is determined by my net worth?" "No, that's not what I mean. It's just, you should have told me. We could have collaborated on investments, could have built something even more substantial together. Could have." The phrase hung between us like a bridge I wasn't sure I wanted to cross. Over the following weeks, my phone never stopped buzzing. Investment managers who'd previously ignored me wanted meetings. Exclusive clubs that had never considered my membership suddenly had openings. Neighbors who'd barely acknowledged my existence were dropping by with dinner invitations and business proposals. Demetrius visited daily, overflowing with ideas for how we could optimize our combined resources. He spoke about private equity, commercial developments, and investment syndicates with the fervor of someone who discovered religion. But something had crystallized in me during those weeks of observation. The shameless eagerness with which people suddenly valued my presence, the transparent way relationships shifted based on perceived wealth, the complete absence of anyone asking about my emotional well-being, it all formed a painful clarity about human nature. 2 months after revealing my wealth, I organized a family meeting. They gathered in my dining room, the same room where this betrayal began, with eager anticipation usually reserved for Christmas morning. Demetrius, Serafina, even Maximilian had accepted the invitation, undoubtedly expecting grand announcements about investment partnerships or family trusts. I stood at the head of the table, looking at these people who had become strangers, and made my choice. I found these past few weeks fascinating. I began noting how they all leaned forward attentively, observing how dramatically relationships can transform when financial circumstances change. How suddenly I became worthy of attention and respect I never received when you considered me merely a small-time architect. Demetrius's confident smile began to waver. "Dad, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that I learned something invaluable about your character, about what truly matters to you, about the kind of man I raised." I pulled out a folder containing legal documents I prepared. "So I've decided to take action." The folder contained my will, investment transfers, and business succession documents. But not as they expected. "I'm donating my entire fortune to educational charities," I announced calmly. $52 million to organizations supporting underprivileged students and single-parent families. People who understand the value of sacrifice and authentic relationships. The silence was deafening. "The only inheritance you'll receive, Demetrius, is my architectural firm, if you want it. The same business you were eager to expand beyond. The same small-scale operation that embarrassed you." Demetrius's face displayed shock, disbelief, anger, then desperate calculation. "Dad, you cannot be serious. We're family. That money belongs to our family." "Our family," I repeated slowly. "The same family that gave me a gas station coffee mug while presenting the father-in-law with luxury cars. The same family that treated me like an embarrassment until discovering my portfolio balance." Maximilian leaned forward with practiced negotiation skills. "Vincent, let's discuss this rationally. Surely we can reach an arrangement that benefits everyone." "The arrangement is simple, Maximilian. You've been more of a father figure to Demetrius than I apparently was. So you can fund his future." I walked toward my kitchen, leaving them in stunned silence around the table, where I'd shared countless meals while building the fortune they'd assumed belonged to them. "Dad, wait." Demetrius followed me, his voice desperate. "We can resolve this. I made mistakes, I acknowledge that. But we're family. You can't destroy our relationship over money." I turned to face him in the kitchen doorway, this man I'd raised from a 12-year-old boy to a 34-year-old stranger. "This isn't about money, son. This is about character. And I've learned everything I need to know about yours." The legal processes took 8 months to complete. My attorneys worked meticulously to ensure every detail was properly documented, every donation strategically allocated, every tax implication carefully managed. During those months, I received thousands of calls, texts, emails, and visits from family members, friends, and business associates who'd heard about my decision. They offered everything from tearful apologies to lucrative partnerships to outright bribes. But none could change the fundamental truth I discovered. Their respect had been for sale, and I was no longer interested in purchasing it. The day the final transfers were completed, I drove to my architectural firm one last time. I decided to sell the business rather than leave it to Demetrius. He made clear he considered it beneath his ambitions, and I wouldn't force my legacy on someone who didn't value it. The sale generated $12 million, which I immediately donated to trade schools and vocational programs. Money meant for young people who understood the dignity of honest work and practical skills. I moved to a small mountain town in Colorado, where nobody knew about my former wealth or family drama. I rented a modest cabin near a lake and took a part-time job at a local furniture workshop, working with my hands again, creating beautiful pieces for people who appreciated craftsmanship over net worth. My phone occasionally rings with numbers I don't recognize, usually family members or former associates who think enough time has passed for reconciliation. I let them go to voicemail. 1 year after my move, I received a handwritten letter forwarded from my old address. The return address showed Demetrius's name, but the handwriting was shaky, uncertain. "Dear Dad," it began. "This is probably the 50th letter I've started and the first I've actually finished. I know you won't want to hear from me, but I need to say this. I was wrong. Not just about the money, though I was catastrophically wrong about that, but about everything. I spent so many years trying to become someone I thought was superior to the man who raised me that I forgot who that man actually was. You weren't just my father. You were my hero. And I destroyed that for the approval of people who never sacrificed a single moment of their lives for me. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that I finally understand what I lost. And it wasn't the money. It was you. I read the letter twice, sitting on my small porch overlooking the lake, listening to loons calling across the water. For a moment, I felt something stir in my chest, familiar paternal instincts, the desire to comfort and protect. Then I folded the letter carefully, walked inside, and placed it in a drawer with a coffee mug I'd kept as a reminder. Some lessons come too late to matter. If you found this story as satisfying as I did living it, hit that like button and subscribe to Central Revenge for more stories where justice isn't just served, it's perfectly crafted. What's the most expensive lesson you've ever had to teach someone? Share your thoughts in the comments below.